Namaskar everyone. Namaskar. Can you all listen? So adding on to, before I start, adding on to what Vishwanathan Swami said and what Raghavji said, you come to the university to learn, and you have a particular domain that you want to learn, and every day you keep adding on to what you're learning, and it's like you learn something and then you add on top of it, and little by little information is accumulated, right? And then those are some kinds of classes that you get from the university, some kinds of lessons that you get from the university. And there are some other kinds of lessons. Maybe it is just a 10-minute lecture, maybe it's a 30-minute lecture, but when you take that class, when you take the lessons from that class, it might offer you a change in perception, a new point of view, maybe a shift in your paradigm. And when you get such lessons, you will find that when you get the core point of that class, it will work backwards and reform what you've already learned so far. Many of the things that you learned before, you will rethink about it, and it will cause you to reevaluate what you learned, and it will bring a maybe a cascade effect on what you have been learning so far, right? And sessions like this are such lectures where if you miss, maybe you may not get it, maybe for another decade, maybe for your entire life if you don't come back, right? And this is the last couple of years of your training. After this, you are out there, you're on your own, and then you learn on your own. So as a university, as Raghavji was saying, as a university, it is the responsibility to make sure that you don't just have the muscles, to keep adding more information or, advancing in whatever domain that you wanted. You also need to have the right vision. And sessions like this give you that right vision early on, right? Many of us had to learn this much later, right? Not during the university time and all. And now, because of such initiatives, because the university is designing in itself like that, you are able to get these things much early on. And I think that you should make better use of it. If you, if you miss it, you cannot replace it. It's not an additive knowledge to what you already know. It might be an entire change in perspective that will help you when you find out what it is at a younger age itself. So anyway, I was adding on to what Swami was saying. And on that note, the next lecture that you are going to have is on decolonization. And decolonization specifically is important in that sense because it is essentially talking about you and your identity and your memory or your role in society and how it is making you, right? So if you don't realize some things in this lecture, or if you realize some of these things, it will help you readjust, how to move forward. Maybe it will help you in self-evaluating better what you've been doing and what has been wrong or things like that. So anyways, on that note, today's lecture is on the dimensions of colonization. And I'm sure some of you will remember your lessons on decolonization from semester 1. Dr. Anurag ji will take you much further in that topic. And basically, when you talk about colonization, you are generally inclined to think that it is about the British colonization of India that happened for over 300 years, and it's a lot about politics, violence, the looting, and the many sufferings that we had. We may think about the Kohinoor diamond, or we think about how Bhagat Singh or Chandrasekhar Azad or many other freedom fighters were there, some of whom were sentenced to hang at the age of 22, right? Or we think about the very violent creation of Pakistan, or we think about the mysterious death or disappearance of Subhash Chandra Bose, and then we think about the assassination of Gandhi, and then we are free and colonization is over. Now we celebrate Independence Day on 15th August every year. And that is what we usually think about colonization. And I would maybe say that sometimes we are also motivated to limit our discussion of colonization there. But reality is that there is much more to colonization, and we are not saying this out of some bias that is formed from patriotism or some bias that is formed out of religion. You can see that, because Europe, not only they not only came to India, because Europe went to all places in the world. They went to America, they went to Africa, they went to Australia. Because they went everywhere, colonization and decolonization studies also happened everywhere. So you have, if you want to know what colonization is of the kind I'm talking about, you have studies all over the world, and you can look at what it is, and you have studies within India also. So you don't. So what I'm saying is, stressing that colonization is beyond political and violent effects is not out of bias, but you can actually see it from studies from other countries, and you can actually arrive at a definition of colonization. I'm sure Anurag ji will talk to you about. And why we need to be bothered about these effects of colonization that have come to us beyond 1947 is because if it is still there, we are the ones who are facing it, right? And if we are actually facing it, it is better to know about it, and rather than being unaware of it and moving on, right? So what is the kind of colonization that we are facing now? And if we are facing it, then addressing it and going beyond it would be necessary, right? And that in effect will become decolonization. And why it is called decolonization also, Anurag ji will mention to you. And on that note, let me introduce Dr. Anurag Shukla. He will discuss all these things that I've mentioned to you. So he serves as the Director of Policy Education at Brihat. He holds a doctorate degree from Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad. And he's a recipient of many prestigious fellowships like the JPL and Star Scholars Program. His research interests include the discourse technology in education, history of education, decolonizing education, arts and culture, and the civilizational heritage of India. So you have a person who is effectively focusing on this particular topic that you're receiving today. So without further ado, I hand over to Anurag ji.
So I'm going to set certain norms for this session. So unlike other speakers here, I am also a student. So I'm also going to learn from you. So I'm going to ask few questions. And now I'm also going to begin with some of the questions, like somebody here had asked that why IKS for engineers, right? So, and also there was some response from the end as well that uh, why should computer scientists learn about IKS, Indian Knowledge System? So going ahead, can someone identify this? This is a dam in India. Uh, someone coming from Tamil Nadu, who is from Tamil Nadu here? I need some responses. Tamil, no, nobody from Tamil Nadu here. Yeah. So can you identify this? No. Yeah. So this is the oldest dam still in the use in the world, and this is the oldest dam which is like 2,000 year back, uh, built by architects and engineers. And if architects and engineers from India built it, what knowledge system they had used? It must have been Indian knowledge system, right? Because there was no other knowledge system at that point of time. And these are examples of marvelous engineering. So this dam is still in use, is still serving all of us. So what sort of technology, what sort of knowledge system which they used, which is still lasting for so long? And giving you another example, so can someone identify this? And I need response for that. So what is this? This pillar, iron pillar. So what is the specialty of this? Yes. So this is again iron pillar of Delhi. which was erected in 4th century and stand as testament to their expertise, like all engineers who had created that, showcasing exceptional corrosion resistance. And scientists and engineers today are still figuring out what they did at that point of time so that it has lasted for so long. So these people were also engineers, like most of us sitting here, right? But they did not declare themselves engineer, that I am engineer and that's why I'm creating that. They were like Pankaj ji was saying, that they were acharyas. They were just common people building something which lasted for so long. And this is a textile, Indian textile. And if we look at history of Indian textile, it is 2,500 years back. And Indian textile was so popular that every single part of the world used to import textiles from India. And textiles from India were venerated, worshipped in countries like Indonesia. Even when excavation happened in Egypt, they found textiles from India there. So 2,000, 3,000 years back. And now we have textile engineers. And if I ask you one question, that can you name one textile engineer, I think you would find it difficult to name one. But we had these people creating something extraordinary some 3,000 years back or 4,000 years back. So, and all of them were engineers. This show you guys must have watched, right? Favorite character? What is the show's name? Game of Thrones. And the sword they are carrying, can you made of Valyrian steel, right? And you would be surprised to know that this Valyrian steel is actually equivalent to Damascus steel, which went to Iran or Persia at that time from India. So in Chera kingdom, the common artisans were creating a steel which was so strong. So, and there is this quote from an Arab tourist who had come, and he says that the Hindus excelled in the manufacture of iron, and it is impossible to find anything to surpass the edge of Hindwani or Indian steel. And this Indian steel went on to become Damascus steel, used by all the warriors, all the invaders, and also sort of became part of this whole popular culture where Valyrian steel. So Valyrian steel is nothing but steel which was produced in Chera kingdom in Tamil Nadu. And all of them are engineers. So they did not declare themselves that they are engineers, but they were creating something which was extraordinarily beautiful as well as lasted for so long. And this is like Pankaj ji has already talked about that, Brihadeswara temple in Tanjavur. And also we need, as an engineer, and that's where we need a shift in our vision. We need to look at these architectural marvels, these engineering marvels as, which is important part of technology. So they are technology in themselves, and actually temples were the center of all the technological production. And unlike any other places like other architecture, temple is not just created that, okay, so one day somebody thought about that and had enough money to build a temple. It is not like that. And we have already seen this in example of Sri Rama temple, that it takes preparation of years and years and thought going behind that to create something as marvelous as this. And all these people involved in all these professions were engineers who did something extraordinary using Indian knowledge system, which Pankaj ji talked about, which Raghav ji talked about, even Amrit talked about. So I have been discussing science and technology in ancient India. So some of you might ask that what happened to Indian science and technology, right? And it's not that suddenly this science and technology and the knowledge disappeared and we became dull and slavish and knowing nothing about our civilization, our culture. And if we look at some of the sources, like for example, when Britishers first came to India, they actually noted every single thing down in their papers and notes, which they were sending it to governor generals and back home in the Britain. And we will look at some of those documents. We will look at some of those anecdotes and some of those mentions which are there. And there is a very interesting book, and I would encourage all of you to actually read this book. And I hope most of you have already read that, but Dharmpal has written a book on science and technology in 18th century India. It's a brilliant book. It documents what happened to Indian science and technology when Britishers came to India. For example, this stone. So when, uh, so when Britishers came to India, they were really surprised to see that the kind of strength this block had. And this is one uh, missionary who writes to his back home British, and he says that the manufacturing of mortar in Madras that forms a stucco work surpassing any known European composition, particularly plaster of Paris, in smoothness and beauty, and it is durable as marble. So Indian civilization created something which lasted for long time. Even 18th century, we have examples here, which was greater than, much more fancier than even plaster of Paris. These days, we feel that the plaster of Paris is something which is gold standard, but we had some centuries back, we had created something as magnificent as this. And not just that, this is very interesting example. So Robert Colt, a doctor in Calcutta, describes a method of smallpox inoculation practiced by Bengali Brahmins. And these were just sadhus roaming from one place to another place. They did not have MBBS degree. But these were the sadhus who actually created this inoculation at least a century before Lady Mary Wortley Montagu pleaded with British doctors to adopt this practice, and almost 2 centuries before Edward Jenner, who is considered to be, who vaccination का हमको बोलते हैं कि इन्होंने शुरू किया. But we see that we had these sadhus, these monks who were just roaming around from one place to another place in rural Bengal and inoculating people against these diseases, communicable diseases. Giving you another example, and likewise, Robert Baker begs the permission to present to the Royal Society a method to manufacture ice that was performed at Allahabad and Calcutta, these places. And this methodology, as Baker argued in the letter, would make permanent colonial settlements a reality. So before these refrigerators were existed, there was no other technology to actually make ice. And it was very difficult for colonial officials to come and establish themselves here in India, because they were coming from a geography which was very, very cold, and then reestablishing themselves in a country like India, which is very hot and humid. But when they arrived in India, they saw that in many places, not just in some part of North India or some part of South India, but in many places, there were engineers, there were acharyas who were creating ice, making ice out of, they had developed a technology. And that actually helped them to create ice, and then actually helping them ultimately to settle down in India. This, one more example. So this Helenus Scott, another doctor stationed in Bombay, writes to his colleague, Joseph Banks of the Royal Society, that he would include in the next bill of lading a sample of this is a surgical cement that putatively reattaches severed limbs. So when we, and also sometimes we have this tendency of mocking everything, but when we read this colonial account, we feel that there were these doctors, these practitioners, these engineers who had actually invented something, and which has been not documented by somebody who considered themselves nationalist and they're going to sort of glorify their history, but Britishers who had come to India as a observer, and they were writing to their own colleague in scientific community. For example, Royal Society of Science, or Royal Society of Social Sciences. So for a very long time, for millennia, India actually ruled over the world. So now look at this graph. And I would request some of you to actually read it out for me. Anyone from the back or anyone from here. And we would see that from 1st century to 2008, this sort of graphs gives you a picture of how India performed or contributed to the world GDP in the last 2 millennia. And if we see here, in the 1st century, and this is this saffron one or pink one, whatever you call it, is the contribution of India to the world economy. And here almost 50% or 40% contribution to the world economy is coming from India. And this lasts for very long time. For 1,000 years, India still contributed to like this. And 1820, India was still contributing almost 25% or 30% to the world economy in 80-20. And we see the very sharp decline since then, 70, 80, 70. Again, it came down to 20%. And by 2008, we are sort of contributing around somewhere between 5 to 6% of world economy. So what happened to a country like India, or to us Indians who were sort of engineers, doctors, like creating fascinating things like temples, steel, sword, all that, and then sudden a sharp decline in their contribution to the world economy. And this is lasted for a very long time. And this is a paper published by Angus Madison. And I would sort of suggest all of you to go back and look at this paper. He also explains why all that process happened. So again, this is, and I would request you to kind of think about this for a while, maybe take 2 minutes and think about that. So what happened in the medieval period, which ravaged a prosperous country like India to such an extent that India turned into a dirt poor country, with Indians turning into captive people. So what do you think happened in that period? And some responses? Colonization happened. So, and colonization is something, is not just about people coming from Britain coming India and settling down here. So there is one aspect of colonization is material colonization, right? Britishers coming here and opening their factories and asking Indians to work from them. But the most damaging aspect of colonization is psychological colonization. So, and psychological colonization is actually when we start or we begin to accept the kind of condition we are in that as natural. That, oh, this is okay. So if I'm poor, okay, I'm poor. So that sort of colonization is psychological colonization, and many people have written about that. So if we look at the definition of it, it says that colonialism is a practice of domination which involves the subjugation of one people to another. And this is a standard definition. But the most damaging part of the colonial mentality. And so what happened to us in those 300 or 400 years of period, that via education, via language, we were instilled a sense of inferiority. We start feeling that no, our languages are not good, our knowledge system is not good, and we were completely cut off from our own knowledge system via education, via language. So Britishers imposed another education system on us. So we must have heard about Macaulay, Lord Macaulay, and Macaulay has written a minute where he says that Indians, we don't need Indian knowledge system, we don't need the one library of Britain is enough, all the books written here in India and other civilization for millennia. And through education and through language and other tools as well, through law, religion, we strategically created something called colonial mentality. And colonial mentality is nothing but internalized attitude of ethnic and cultural inferiority felt by people as a result of colonization, them being colonized by other people. So you start doubting yourself, you start losing confidence in yourself, confidence in doing something great, confidence in doing something creative, coming up something, some original idea. And this was done purposefully, because, and again, this corresponds with the belief that cultural values of colonizer are inherently superior to one's own. So they kept telling us that our religion is superior to you, our way of living is superior to you, our way of dressing is superior to you, and they slowly, gradually start converting us to sort of cheap replica of Britishers. So, and also we start feeling that, oh, this is something good for us and we should be following that. And this is colonial mentality. Actually, we start thinking about ourselves. even for thinking, we start depending on how Britishers wanted us to think. Uh, and this is a very interesting para from a book, from S.N. Bal Gangadhara's book, where he actually explains this process. He says that colonization has evolved not only the colonization of land and resources, which is how it is generally understood, subjugating peoples and their traditions, but also colonizing their experiences and imagination. So we lost access to our imagination, which was part of us for millennia. We lost access to our experience, which were part of our experiences to millennia. And when modern Orientalism provided descriptions of other people and traditions, the colonized took such portrayals as descriptions of themselves. So what happened that when we lost access to our own knowledge system, our own languages, we lost also access to the categories which were available to us to define ourselves. So we started getting defined by the categories which Britishers had created for us. And this is where all the discussions around caste, religion and everything, secularism, all the discussions will come. And this is also something, not just an engineer, but also as just a simple human being, somebody who is going to be part of society and economy in the future, knowing about how all these processes happen. What is secularism is all about, what is separation between state and religion is all about, what is colonialism is, why our languages are important, why our own knowledge system is important. So what it does is that it completely breaks down any linkages you might have with your own traditions, with your own knowledge system, and your own knowledge about your own self is now mediated by something which has been introduced by these colonizers. So they introduce another language, they introduce education, they introduce religion, they introduce other tools and technologies to sort of cut off you from how your existence from the millennia. So what it essentially does, all these categories, these frameworks which are introduced to you through education, through religion, through law, they sort of they introduce modifications in such a way that earlier experiences are no longer accessible to the subject that is experiencing. So now I don't know, for example, I don't know if any one of you actually know how to speak in Sanskrit, right? Or even there is an increasing pressure that we should not be speaking in Malayalam, or we should not be speaking in Hindi or any other mother tongue. Because somehow we feel that no, speaking in English is going to give us a job, and is considered like it's cool to speak in English. So, and this all comes from our own experience of colonial mentality, and all of us are sort of subject to that. So some of us have started thinking about that, and that's where I also want you guys to actually start thinking about your own place in this whole education project, your place in this economy, your place, how are you going to do your job, etc. So again, and this is where education is important, because our education completely cut us off from our experiences from the past. So, and what additionally it does, that first, colonialism immoral is not just the fact that it robs people of their experiences of the world, but also it does so using a framework that is unjustified and unjustifiable, which is imposed on you, which is not yours, which is not in your language, which is not coming from your own culture, completely imposed on you. So, and this is, and I'm going to, and this is very, very, and these are the reflections of colonial officers who had come to India as officers, part of bureaucracy. And this is one J. Farris, who was a member of Bombay government. He writes in a letter which he has written to his bosses in Britain. He says that the natives of India must be kept down by a sense of our power, or they must willingly submit from a conviction that we are wiser, more just, more humane to improve their conditions. And this they did via education, via religion, via law, kept instilling us that we are inferior. And this they did it purposefully, very strategically. And he further writes, if well directed, the progress of education would undoubtedly increase our moral hold over India. And moral hold over India means that we Indians will start accepting that we are inferior. Morally, we will accept that we are inferior. But at the same time, we should also ensuring that it does not lead the natives to a consciousness of their own strength. So they were also careful that even though we are giving education to Indians, we have to be careful that first they start accepting that they should start accepting that they are inferior, and this education should not lead to any sort of rebellion or any sort of resistance. So they were very, very careful about that. So this is one colonial officer and one Indian serving them. So and also, like all of us, we are all fascinated by the kind of jobs we are going to get, and it was actually done very purposefully. That the kind of education which was created during the British period was actually created to create job seekers, not original thinkers, not leaders, but people who just want to enroll in a course or enroll in a degree program just to get jobs. And this was done because Britishers did not want any original thinker. They did not want any rebellion or resistance. They wanted people who would just follow the orders. And this is where, if we see that as colonial government wanted natives to help British surveyors, engineers in their work, it translated the engineering curriculum to vernacular language. So these colleges were established. And Britishers, because they wanted to control the vast tracts, vast geography of India, they created a huge bureaucracy for that. For example, railways come into the existence, a bureaucracy came into the existence, and they did not have resources. They could not employ all the British people here in India. So they were forced to employ Indians, and that's where the education actually helped them to sort of create a moral framework where Indians start accepting that this is why we should be doing education, because we want the job of mere clerks. So education became a sort of a factory, an assembly line to produce more and more clerks, more and more people who will follow the order than thinking originally, thinking creatively, or thinking like a leader. So this is again, all of these reflections are coming from colonial officials themselves. So, and they found it very much simpler and politically wiser to create a class of cheaply paid but loyal Indians, low-level bureaucrats to help staff the provincial offices and act as a buffer or intermediary class to stand between government and the masses. So education just became a factory to produce more and more people who will follow the order. And this is Macaulay's brother-in-law, who writes in his book on education of people of India. And he writes that we British should not try to instill in the native a deep grasp of subjects, but to force them to ap and recite English and metaphysics in the most slavish fashion. So you just go and, for example, in engineering, and that's why there is a clear separation from in engineer having skills and knowing the theory. So this separation from theory and knowing the subject comes from actually this sort of education which has been imposed on us by Britishers. That being an engineer, we are a mechanical engineer, and we have reports coming from NASCOM which says that almost 95% of engineers in India are unemployable. And this is happening because we have a sort of education which just want us to memorize certain definitions and go and reproduce them as it is in your exams and pass the exams without learning any skill. And elaborating on it, he further says that more importantly, education should instill in them a respect and a awe for aristocratic values of majestic English language and culture, and a corresponding contempt and disdain for their own background. So they were again very, very clear from the beginning that first they should start valuing English language, English culture, going to the pubs, and all everything, at the same time instilling them a value that your culture is bad, your way of, your languages are irrelevant, they're not going to give you any job, your own background, your way of dressing is bad, you need to kind of uh, wear more English clothing and all that. And this, again, this was done for hundreds and hundreds of years. And this is, as a result, the whole education system became geared towards training for government services. And this is where, like, I come from Uttar Pradesh, and northern part of India. There is a great fascination for getting a government job, because they feel that after you get a government job, it is very difficult for you to get, like, kind of, nobody can force you out of that job, and you can work as a government worker without even working. So this is how. And as there were not enough jobs to go around, many of the educated Indians became mere clerks. Continuing on this legacy, India, so we still have that patronage system. We continue with that. We continue with that kind of bureaucracy. And this was done by destroying indigenous informal schools. So, and in that same Dharmpal book, he actually documents the indigenous form in education which was available in pre-colonial India. And there are reports, again, from British officials, 80-20 in Karnataka, part of Karnataka and part of Bengal, Punjab, where they document that there was a school in every single village. There used to be a village master. And all sections of society used to study that. It's not that education was just available to Brahmins or certain classes, and he has documented that how many other people are studying in that school. So all that was destroyed to create a system where they followed this downward infiltration theory, that we would create few people who would sort of become ideal for other people to work as a clerk or work as a officers for British bureaucracy. So, and what it does, what such sort of education does, that it stops producing original thinkers and leaders which are necessary to make a country and its people prosperous. So we just become a cheap replica of colonizers. We just become a hybrid individuals who do not have any original thought, who do not have any creative thought, who just want to get a degree and work as a clerk or as somebody who is going to follow the order. So again, it trains the memory and provides the student with a store of facts and second-hand ideas. So you are always dependent on somebody for the ideas, because you're not original thinker. And this is like memory is the woodcutters, and Sri Aurobindo again gives a very, very good sort of metaphor for that. He says that then memory is woodcutter's axe, and the store he acquires is the wood he has cut down in course of tree felling. So for example, now once you get a degree from here, you have been given an axe, and you have been says that, oh, your degree is go and cut the trees. So that, what is going to come out of that sort of education? That you are only going to fell more and more tree. So you're not, because you have not been given the concept behind that. You are not original thinker. You are not creative thinker. So you're not going to use those woods for any creative purpose other than leading to felling of more and more trees. So and that's why, like, to give students knowledge is necessary, but it is more necessary to build them in them the power of using his knowledge and skills. Now the student who goes forth thus equipped may become a great timber merchant, but unless he is an exceptional genius, he will never be even be a moderate carpenter, because you have no idea how to use that wood in a different ways, because you are not original thinker. You have not been taught to think for yourself. So, and this happens that our education system, via this colonial consciousness, has not created leaders and original thinkers. So who is this? Can someone help me with that? Yeah. So we have not produced another Ramanujam, and also these Ramanujams used to be produced not just by chance. So now Ramanujams are produced by just by chance, or maybe somebody who maybe may have born in India but went out and then became or got some prize in mathematics. But now we're not seeing that happening in education system now. And who's this person? Can someone help me with this and identifying this personality? And he's a famous engineer. Like all of us are engineers. All engineers are sitting here. And we can see that how, even being an engineer, we cannot identify our own people who were great engineers in the past, just maybe 50 years back or 70 years back. And this is the kind of awareness, sort of connectedness or missing of connect with our own past, with our own culture, which is sort of missing in all of us. And this is where IKS, knowing about your own culture, knowing about your own civilization helps. And this person is Visvesvaraya. And Visvesvaraya is considered one of the greatest engineer, not just in India, but in the world. Dams created by him are still surviving, and in parts of Karnataka, he was a part of Mysore kingdom. And those, the infrastructure created by him, the engineering marvels created by him are still surviving. And and also our education system is not even producing someone like E. Sridharan, somebody who is a great engineer but at the same time very ethical and honest. Now we have engineers, we have doctors who are not ethical at all. So even and all these people are extraordinary thinkers, these people are extraordinary leaders, these people are extraordinary engineers. So they're not just any other engineers, they're not just any other clog in the wheel. People know them because they are very much rooted in their own culture. They have original ideas, they have ethical standards, they have moral frameworks with them. And all these ethical standards, moral frameworks, they come from your own past, your own experience, your own standing on the giants who have done the similar work in the past. So if we don't know about our own past, we are going to be just another clueless engineer working from some company, and nobody would be knowing about us. And now many of you are from Kerala. So can somebody identify this? So this is Padmanabhapuram Palace of Travancore, Trivandrum. And this is again classic Kerala architecture. And this classic Kerala architecture is considered one of the best architecture and sustainable architecture in the world. So when we talk about even ideas of sustainability, can we look at our own past? Can we look at our own culture? Can we look at around us to learn about sustainability instead of again depending on somebody to talk to us about sustainability? Because these architectures, these marvels have, and also the good thing about them that they're not imposed, and they are very much suited to the sort of the kind of geography or the weather of a place like Kerala. So this is again traditional houses of Kerala, and many generations have lived there. And this is this idea of sustainability. Like for example, as an engineer, we talk about sustainability. So, and this is the challenge for us. This is again a homework for all of us to sort of have this awareness, have this sort of knowledge to look around things around us and see that can some of these things which we ignore on a daily basis, can they be introduced into our own knowledge system, like our own day-to-day lives, and we can think about that, we can write about them. So, and this is not something which some people just created. There is a science behind this architecture, like Kerala architecture, and it has been written, like Shastras have been written about that. So, and I don't know if there are architectures sitting here or other engineers, material engineers sitting there. So, how many of you have actually read anything about this in your course? And this is what happened, that first colonial education system completely removed any part, like any fragment of all this knowledge from our curriculum. And also, because we don't have access to our own experiences from the past, we completely ignore these things which are around us. And see and look at the beauty of this architecture. Look at the thought behind it. Look at the philosophy idea behind that. So, and these concepts, and whenever the people or the artisans who are working on this architecture, when they derive the timber for it, they consider it a living form. And when used for, and they consider that because this is a living form, it has its own life. And, and, and that's why it should always be harmonized with the kind of larger world. So, and this is the person who used to create, or still I don't know if in parts of Kerala there might still be people who will be creating that master carpenter. And the whole idea is that traditionally before a tree was cut to use its wood, the master carpenter would take the permission of the tree. He would go there, stand in front of tree, bow down and say that we are going to cut you, because they considered it being a living being. Uh, and the indication that the tree was now ready and willing to be cut and used was that all the birds and animals form residing on it would leave it. And this used to be, it's not that one day they just got up and went to a tree and sort of requested that. They used to go to that tree one after another time, always, until all the birds and animals forms who are residing on that tree, they will leave. And only after that they would cut down that tree to make the sort of architecture which we see, which is still surviving in everywhere, like in parts of traditional architecture of. So this is again, idea here is to sort of introduce you to indigenous idea of sustainability. And for us, sustainability is not a concept, but it's a lived reality. So we still have communities like Bisnois. In Rajasthan, we still have communities like Tana Bhagats in Jharkhand. And I want to share one example from Jharkhand. So when COVID happened, so there is a tribal population in Jharkhand called Tana Bhagats. And Tana Bhagats, they believe that we need to keep our environment completely clean, and there is a community sort of ownership of all the resources, that it's not about you keeping yourself healthy, but it's about as a community keeping a community healthy. And in the whole pandemic period of 2 or 3 years, not a single person in that Tana Bhagat community got affected with COVID. Not a single person, because of local wisdom and the community ownership, because they valued their traditional wisdom, they valued their community wisdom. And similarly, for example, these Bisnois. So if any of you remember Salman Khan case, when he killed a bagbuck, only a community like Bisnois could follow up that case. So, and still, like you go and Google about Bisnoi communities, and you will see that how many women are actually feeding these baby deer or any animal, so, and directly feeding them. And they considered these animals, these tree, part of their own family. So, and that's where I want to kind of emphasize that the ideas of sustainability and these engineering engineering as a discipline did not just emerge in the 16th or 17th century. Maybe it was coined, the engineering word was coined there, but we have examples from Chola period, 2000 years back, which are still surviving, and they are engineering marvels. So, as an engineer, we should be like sort of feel proud about our own past. We should try to access some of these experiences and try to see that how we can actually help our own profession by accessing more and more knowledge of it, reading more about that, also developing ourselves as creative leaders, as original thinkers, as leaders, other than just sort of any other engineer which might see around us. So again, all of us, speakers have been emphasizing that. So we always, in our education system and the way we are located there, we always begin with colonized mind. And our journey now should begin to decolonize that and moving towards sort of a civilizational mind. So, and I hope all of us are sort of ready for that. And the course which Swamiji and Brahat has created, that course is going to help you in this journey of decolonizing your mind, knowing about your own past, feeling proud about that, knowing that how in the past we created these marvels, these engineering marvels, architectural marvels, until very recently there were these technologies available to us. And then going to the extent of having this civilizational mind, like become Visvesvarayyas of 21st century or become Ramanujams of 21st century, having original ideas, creative ideas, so that you don't just become another engineer who is working for a company. So, and this is where our responsibility comes, our accountability comes, that we need to translate our traditions into the language of 21st century without diluting their essence. So it's not just that we need to again borrow everything from our past and make it part of our own experiences, but be very strategic, be very thoughtful, be very careful, and translate some of these knowledges in such a way that their, their essence is not diluted. At the same time, they are very useful for us. And also stop this talk the talk and walk the walk of the colonizers. Just stop looking at engineering degree just as a degree and which is going to give us a job. Let us like kind of get on to a journey where we sort of think about how our engineering degree or skills which we have learned or the knowledge which we have gained there can be used for a social purpose or a public purpose, so that we go beyond just becoming a mere engineers. And also this would going to require a lot of hard intellectual labor, because this is not going to uh, come without spending a lot of intellectual labor or a lot of time and the energy in it. So if you want to be part of this journey, you also need to do a lot of sort of readings, meeting more people, knowing more about your own past, sort of interacting more and more people. So this is going to require a lot of intellectual labor as well. So again, now I'm going to go back to like some of the words of Sri Aurobindo. And this is again sort of, I'm going to reiterate that he talks about that what was the secret of gigantic intellectuality, spirituality, and superhuman moral force which we see pulsating in Ramayana and Mahabharata. So we have so many characters in Ramayana, Mahabharata who have done extraordinary things. So what was in the ancient civilization where producing great individuals was part of system, like people, every single other person was a great person. And why it has now coming to us by a chance that, okay, so in 1 million or 2 million we see one great intellectual coming in. So he is again reflecting on those experiences. And he again says that he again says that what was the basis of the incomparable public works and engineering achievements and all these exquisite industries, great triumphs of science, scholarship, jurisprudence, logic, metaphysics, ancient philosophy, poetry, art, sculpture, and architecture in the past. And there is a very interesting actually study. So Harvard University has done a study on all the Nobel Prize winner since 1940s. So they tried to look at what makes these Nobel Prize winner different from other scientists or other people who are working in the same field. And the most important thing which they got, that many of these people, first they had some other interest than engineering or medical or science. So somebody was great musician as well, somebody was really interested in classical music, somebody was was a really good artist. For example, Tagore from India, he got, even though Nobel Prize for literature, but he was again a very good development thinker, poet. He also even became brand ambassador for some of these advertisements which came around first decades of 20th century. So, and this is what, and also they all of them were culturally rooted, civilizationally aware, that they are responsible for the next generation. So this is not just another job for them. all these Nobel Prize winners, they feel that there is a public duty. They are there to perform duty for the larger public, for the larger people who are living around them. So it's not just that their daily job or personal duty, but that is a public duty for them. And this is where, like, Sri Aurobindo, he sort of deconstructs that, what makes an individual a great individual. He says that the first necessity for the building up of a great intellectual superstructure is to provide a foundation strong enough to bear it. The various faculties of memory, judgment, imagination, perception, reasoning, etc. needs to build. And very interestingly, or not so surprisingly, all these superstructure generally comes from your own civilization, your own culture, standing on the giants of the past. So you cannot just in a single day invent all these adharas or superstructure. It has to come from the experiences from the past. And this is sort of, he is addressing to all of us from this quote. He says that all of us are a dynamo into which waves of that energy have been generated and stored. And when he says that the waves of that energy have been generated and stored, he's talking about the past experiences of our own ancestors, that all that has been stored, generated, and are being perpetually conserved, used up, and replenished. Knowing that you are an integral part of that universe creates an adhara base on which further knowledge can be created. So all of us have to realize that we are dynamos of energy. Like we are, if we put our mind into something, we can do great things. We will do extraordinary things. It just needs a reflection on our part, that what role we have to play here in this society, in this culture, and what is our responsibilities, what is our duties contributing to that. And just sort of again re-emphasizing on that, the role of culture, the culture is very important here, the respect for culture. And these are not my words, these are Swami Vivekananda's words. And he says that being modern is the need of hour. So nobody is going to stop you from being modern. With the word connected on our fingertip, the latest trends and fashions reach to us in no time. The word is one and we are family. But what stands us out and makes us unique are the distinguishable characteristics of culture, which comes from culture. And this is his quote. So, and here he is talking to a Britisher. And he says that in your culture, cloth builds a man, but in our culture, character builds a man. And it's our culture which makes us unique, which makes us stand out from anyone else in that crowd. So culture, traditions, beliefs make a community unique. The more we reason its significance in our lives, the more we get to understand the importance of it. And I would like to end with Swami Vivekananda's quote. And he says that we want that education by which character is formed, strength of mind is increased, and the intellect is expanded, and by which one can stand on one's own feet. So you cannot become an intellectual giant, you cannot become a great engineer or great leader without standing on your own feet, which means that without using your own knowledge, without using your own mind, without completely decolonizing your mind. And again, one quote from him: "My child, what I want is muscles of iron and nerves of steel, inside which dwells a mind of the same material as that of which the thunderbolt is made." So our attempt through this Firekeeper course, is to create, like some of you might become those firekeepers who have these muscles of iron and nerves of steel. And your mind, and dwells there a mind of the same material as that of which thunderbolt is created. So if any of you feels that you are ready for this challenge, and this is going to be a very intellectually challenging one, but this is going to completely transform your life it is going to create great engineers. It is going to like making you a great engineer, good leader, a creative thinker. So thank you so much.
Yeah, it's been a very heavy dose post-lunch. Yeah. So quickly, we've been talking about Firekeepers of Civilization. We've been trying to impress upon you that there is something beyond this one. But it is a hard ask, right? And you should definitely critically examine. Our job is to tell you what we have to offer. Your job is to assess it critically and see on both counts. On one, if you are convinced about it, and two, if you're ready for it. What I'm trying to do in the next 10 minutes is to tell you why this is important. Why this kind of leadership, when you think about leadership today, why should a computer science student be interested in civilization? Why should a computer science student or engineer, whatever stream that you come from, be thinking about some of these dimensions? So let's look at what a civilizational mind looks like. Anurag has already mentioned this. It is an integral cultural cognition providing a moral direction in a complex world. If we were to sum up all the conversations that we had since yesterday, we just try to impress upon you that you are entering a complex world. In many ways, my generation has made that world complex for you, and we want to help you out. It's a sort of a penance for us. Because in a complex mind, in a complex world, the only real strategic ally that you have is your own mind to outrun the pace of the change in the environment. So what does this mean? All of you recognize Sridhar Vembuji? How many of us have followed Sridhar Vembuji? What is unique about him? Some icons, some role modeling. We should understand how all of human history operates, how we learn. We learn through a moment of inspiration, but that moment of inspiration is embodied as a person somewhere. And we role model our behavior against him. What Vembuji has done is to actually study. How many of you know that he studied economics? He has a PhD in economics. All of us understand him as a technologist, but he can speak finance, global economy, and the industrialization much better than many of the people who studied that as a subject. He studied this as he did his PhD in the US, or at least he attempted to do it, and then he came back because he realized the limits of that. And then when he came back is when he decided to start this journey in the remote village of Tamil Nadu, because he realized the global economic design is not sustainable. And he also realized he has a philosophy called transnational localism. He realized what Anurag was trying to tell us in the last 1 hour as well, is that globalization today operates by capturing knowledge systems. And Sridhar Vembuji says this, the way the globalization has been happening in the last 20 years is that they export capital to buy technology and to accrue value. And you end up only producing labor. You don't produce capital, you don't produce technology. Because, for example, today if India has to assemble its own rocket, there are several dependencies. How many of you have seen the Rafale deal that we had? It's the first deal where we also get technology transfer. Not just the equipment, but also the ability to make it the way we want. Unless you have it, your own nation is never safe in a war. So he understood the design of this, and that's why he has a philosophy of transnational localism, where he's saying that if we are supplying labor, then it is actually important that we build the competencies to eventually do the production here. What he has shown in software development in an area, because India has been an IT capital for the last 2-3 decades, but India does not have a world-beating product yet. All of us use Facebook, we use Instagram, we use Google, we use all of these products. All of these companies have Indian engineers, but we don't have an Indian product that the world uses. That is what he's attempting to change, and he's created a Zoho suite to try and change that. How many of you recognize Jay Shankarji? Any of you followed him? Jay Shankarji, again, a polymath, kind of complex thinker, thinks about international relations, talks about India's national interest. Think about his job, how complex and complicated it is. There is a war that Russia is fighting with Ukraine, and US and pretty much all of European powers are aligned with Ukraine. Now, as the external affairs minister representing India's interest, he has to maintain a relationship with Russia because we need to buy oil from Russia. That is in Indian national interest. If you do not buy that oil and if you don't stock up your energy reserves, you will be dependent on the rest of the world forever for your energy, right? So he has to build a relationship with Russia, but he has to do it without affecting the relationship with US. And US has a direct stake in that war. So he has to balance at a national level all of our interests, computing the possibilities in a very, very complex world. And if you follow his thing, we'll probably, this place we'll see. There's a small video where he talks about how Ramayana and Mahabharata are the basis for India's foreign policy. In fact, there's a new book that is written. I'm reading that book now. It's called Why Bharat Matters. Why India should matter to the rest of the world. And the entire book, chapter by chapter, he makes this point and then he gives an example from Ramayana about it. In terms of alliance building, in terms of spycraft, in terms of moral leadership, in terms of balancing strategic priorities. Each of these things, he says, I get these ideas. I look up to Ramayana and Mahabharata to actually balance the complex international politics. Next person, you probably know him. How many of you know Jai Sai Deepak ji? He's more popular than many others these days. Sai Deepak ji is a very close associate for us at Brihat. He's been supporting us for a long time. Again, what was he? He was an engineer. What is he now? He is a Supreme Court lawyer and specializing in IP, but he is also writing books on colonization, India's history, and India's knowledge systems. It's a great example of what an integral mind looks like. And he's sparked by what? He's sparked by the power of this civilization and the need to protect it. Every single speech, every single idea that he proposes is about how to make sure that Bharat never surrenders again and that we actually have the power to lead. So how do we, the whole idea of bringing these role models, whether it is Sridhar Vembuji, whether it is Ashwin Vaishnavji, whether it is Jai Sai Deepakji, is to help you understand Ashwin Vaishnavji is an industry technology leader. What is he leading now? Any of you know who he is? He is India's railway minister. And India's railways now has got a big boost in technology and production and actual process management because you have a professional in charge of it. This has been one of the great things that this government has done. In very specific roles, they've gone for merit and competence. They are not politicians, they are not elected politicians, but they're all ministers leading most important portfolios, whether it is External Affairs Ministry or it is Railways, purely on the basis of merit and their ability to deliver public good in a complex world. Your single greatest strategic strength would be thinking about a larger good than yourself in a complex world and deploying your skill there. If you can do that, you will have a leadership journey. Otherwise, like we've been saying, you will have a followership journey. There's nothing wrong with following, but few of us should definitely be leading. Right? So the whole idea of Firekeepers, what are the program components? It's a mentor-mentee design. The whole idea is that this is a one-year program where we will introduce you to history, to civics, to philosophy, to political science, to technology, to design. There will be components of it where we will take you to temples. There will be group discussions. There will be public leadership. There will be focus on certain skills. And all of this is based on a mentor-mentee design and field experiences with very personalized but important reading schedules. If you want to be part of this program, you need to be ready to read. You need to invest time in reading. If you're ready for it, this is a program that we would like you to consider. Then there is also communications apprenticeship. You can join, we will create opportunities for you through which you can write, you can speak, you can also produce certain kind of visual media, and we will support you in that journey. And lastly, internships, workshops, and debating societies. These are all components of the program. It's a one-year program. The program registration is available. We'll share the website link for you. If you are interested in this kind of meta-learning that I've spoken about, where the only way to sustain is to know how you learn, not just the subject, but your own mind, which is able to apply itself on any subject. If you are interested in this, then there is this one-year program that we are willing to commit, and we have a great support from the university to offer to you. And we'd like to see some of you generating interest in this, and we are available at least for the next couple of days. even now after this, to have a conversation. So yeah, welcome. Take a look at the program link and join us. I hope to see a few of you there. Thank you. It's not just the first, this is the only program that we have which of this kind from Bruhat. We do a lot of online courses, we do a lot of writing, we do a lot of Lit Fest, we'll do a lot of things in culture and media production. But we've been wanting to build a civilizational leadership program, and this is the first and only university that we are offering it to. Because it needs that kind of vision alignment, it needs that kind of support from the university. There's no reason for a university to be doing this. I want us to understand this just one more time. There is no reason for a university to be trying to help us become better human beings and better leaders. No university does it. It is being done here because it has a spiritual core. And there is a leadership here that cares for the kind of students that we actually introduce into society. Each one of us is at least leading ourselves. Right? So this is the idea of this program, that there is a vision for a better society.
Yeah, Namashivaya, yesterday, as part of the consecration of the temple in Ayodhya, the Prime Minister made a very, very significant statement. Anyone remembers? This is laying the foundation for the 1,000-year future of this country and the world. Okay, what he's saying that India is going to take the leadership role for the world. But that cannot happen unless we are rooted in who we are. Okay? So I believe your future is going to be not determined by your technical skills. It is your vision for your nation and the world which will define your role that you can play in future. And the foundation of that capacity to move ahead and take advantage of the opportunities is your own core understanding, knowledge, and experience. Okay, so we really are trying to not look at you all as engineers, of course, as a foundation, but who has a vision, that vision has to come from your past. Okay, and as I rightly said, even people like Jaishankar ji can go back. Anyone of you read Ramayana? Valmiki Ramayana, the original? Anyone read Mahabharata? If you read, you will understand what we're talking. The finest minds, E. Sridharan, for example, you talk to him, he says, all that I am today is because of my understanding of Bhagavad Gita. He's an engineer par excellence. The finest engineer probably this country has produced in recent times. Because these books are so much of wealth of not, what to say, mythology and this thing. It is pure knowledge, pure understanding of your life, how you connect with everything around you in the world. As Pankaj rightly said by Raghavji, integrated understanding of the world we are part of. Okay? And this program is primarily helping you to integrate your ambitions, your talent, your commitments, your responsibility into one single mind. So you can really deliver, create an impact. So by the time we leave this world, we have the satisfaction that I done my part. Today, most people don't have it, even though they accomplish everything. You talk to them, they feel still vacuous, still feel limited, still feel they could have done more. We don't want that, is it not? So I'm appealing to your day when you complete your life's journey, looking back and say, wow, it was a great experience. That is what we need. That is what we are educating for. Our education is for the rest of our life. Okay, not to earn a few rupees. Okay, so that is the spirit of this work, to really calling that finest, nobler, deeper cultural, civilizational values in you, that those aspirations in you. Think about it. So as Raghavji said, whoever is interested and have this kind of idea, come over. We will have a session in Shraddha Hall. Okay, we'll spend some time there, knowing each other. Not that you want to join, but at least listen to each other, talk to each other, share notes, and we would like to have a forum in the campus. Okay, we will have something like Amrita Indic Forum or something like that, where all of you like-minded people can be part of that program. We can have debates, discussions, seminars. So we learn all these things along with please be good engineers, but along with that, please have the civilizational understanding. So when you go out, your confidence and your confidence in meeting the world and your presence wherever you go, you should be able to create an impact. Okay, that is what this world is going to look for. That is what which is going to get respect for you, not because of technical knowledge, because you have vision of the world, you have vision of your own life, your society and the nation, which is so powerful that, that is so compelling. Okay, that is what we would like to offer. Thank you. Thank you all of you. Shadow, taken your papers. Yeah, so good. It was a great journey. I think this is the last session for you all. Okay, thank you all. Good. 1 sec. What is that? What is that? Oh, you all will get a link. Okay, so you can share and register for being part of the program, or at least showing your interest. But as I told you, they are here today and tomorrow. Every day 5 p.m. we are going to have an informal interaction with like-minded students. You are welcome to come. Om Amritapuri Campus. Namaskar.